it's a BA Human Rights diploma course, then it is taught. But it is not part of the general curriculum. It is not part of the sensitization of a younger generation. Human rights are sacrosanct. The torture is a sin, it's a crime, it's a violation of the Constitution, it's a violation of the Indian Penal Code. It is not part of the educational curriculum. They were saying, and he was telling me, I was aghast at Paul was saying, that the police is illiterate. The minimum requirement of a policeman is at least he has to be a 12th pass, if not a graduate. In Delhi Police, a large number of constables are MA. Many of them have a law degree. For some time, I was roaming around with a bodyguard with an automatic weapon against me because somebody wanted to kill me at that time. This man was an MA and LP. He was a police constable because there were no jobs to be had. So it's a myth that policemen are illiterate. That they're callous is a fact. That the illiterate is not true. Somewhere at the police training school, somewhere at the army training college, somewhere at the officer training college in Chennai, Hyderabad, Delhi or Dehradun, something has been amiss. And I think we have to rectify that. Unless human rights becomes a part of the discourse, unless we build up a revulsion, a religious revulsion against torture, it will not come into the discourse, it will not be part of the public domain. It will not be part of it. Why are not more journalists coming out speaking? Why is Kriti Roy not covered in the national media or even in the television media? It is a thing that we need to consider before we start blaming the police or somebody else. Does the media itself ask for torture? If it is Kashmir, or in the radio, Doordarshan ask for strict action. And the newspapers in Jammu are perpetually crying out for action. When the Punjab disappearances were taking place, and if you think of the Punjab disappearances over a period of 10 years, what happened during the height of the Khalistan movement, the highest of the police atrocities, they are legion. They're legion. Torture to the extent of killing. The late Ram Kumar investigated this. There's a book on it. 2,000 cases of youth, an entire generation of Sikh youth who were picked up, tortured, shot, their bodies cremated, the ashes dispersed. No proof at all about what happened. A couple of these cases have taken place in Kadama, in Orissa also. The bodies burned, so you don't even know what crime was committed. You can't post-mortem, you can't do an autopsy on ashes, especially ashes that have dispersed into the water. No crime was committed because there is no evidence at all. The media should wake up, my own people, the younger generation of media should wake up, those of them who scream that India wants answers. India does want some answers to this crime of torture. Who will give those answers remains a big question. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We shall now request Mr. Dunu Rai in the discussion for contribution.
We have had Colin Gonzalez and John Mayer give us two versions or two sides of this picture. I just want to take you about 5 minutes through what has happened in Delhi earlier, so as to give a little more background. 5 points is the BSF behaves the way it does in West Bengal. In 1993, the first Delhi Assembly elections took place after almost 35 years. The Delhi government was elected, and it was a BJP government. And one of the first things that the BJP government did, as part of their electoral mandate, was to start Operation Pushback. They said that there were 4.5 lakh Bangladeshi illegal immigrants in Delhi, and they had to be pushed back. So a special task force was constituted of the Delhi police to push back these Bangladeshis. And that is the roots of why the BSF thinks it is the sole power at the border. Because this was the mandate given to them to push back Bangladeshis into Bangladesh. This started in 93. It lasted for about 2-3 years. But the violence that it created had some repercussions. And it took the media some time to catch up on this. There were several reports that came out. And by 94-95, it started slowing down. But subsequently, in 98, the BJP government came back to power, but not in Delhi. They came back to power at central level. And when they came back to power in 2001, there was a petition in the Delhi High Court by a BJP sympathizer, which basically said that there were lakhs of Bangladeshi illegal migrants in Delhi, and this was changing the demographic structure. What it actually meant was changing the voting pattern. So they filed this case. In the Delhi High Court, the Delhi police was summoned to inquire how many Bangladeshis were there in Delhi. And there is an affidavit on oath in the court by the ACP of Delhi police, which says there has been no count, but there must be lakhs. Now, just on the basis of this affidavit, the Delhi High Court issued an order saying that every day 100 Bangladeshis must be arrested and deported to the world. And a sticker was fixed that 100 Bangladeshis must be deported. So presumably it meant that every year, while 1 year, 3.5 lakh Bangladeshis would be deported. This is the simple figure that is coming out. Oh, sorry, 35,000 Bangladeshis would be deported every year. So it would take 10 years to push back the 3.5 lakh Bangladeshis in Delhi into Bangladesh. This essentially meant that the Delhi task force then set up a system of mukhbirs or informers in all the slums of Delhi. And these mukhbirs were supposed to inform who was the Bangladeshi illegal immigrant, and they came from the community itself. So essentially it increased the level of corruption. A mukhbir would inform the person who would not pay the mukhbir. It's a simple equation. And these were, so every day the Delhi police was arresting 1,000 people. Because out of this 1,000 people, 100 would not be able to prove that they were Indian citizens. So at that time we had asked our Delhi police, what was the identification of a Bangladeshi Muslim? And they said 3. One was he should be wearing a lungi. 2 is he would not be speaking Hindi properly. And 3 is he had a Mohammedan name. So these are the 3 criteria on the basis of which they arrested 1,000 people. These 1,000 people were supposed to produce documents and to prove that they had Indian citizenship. Most of them could not produce it, but if they could produce a 1,000 rupee note with a photograph of Gandhiji on it, then they were not supposed to be Bangladeshis. Otherwise, no matter what, and we have evidence of this. They produced land records, they produced ration cards, they produced voter cards. These were drawn up by the Delhi police. And this formed the basis for getting those 100 Bangladeshis who were supposed to be illegal immigrants. These people, irrespective of whether they had families, whether they had children, whether they had parents, were kept in a night shelter, which is supposed to be home for homeless. They were kept in a night shelter until there were sufficient of them to load into a train with closed windows. Then they were taken to Old Delhi station. They were put into that train, and that whole train load was transported to Malwa or to Murshidabad. And there they were taken, from there they were taken to the border. And this was Delhi police that was doing it. At the border, they were handed over to the BSF. And then the Delhi police came back. The BSF would then take this trainload of so-called Bangladeshi immigrants to the border, to this 10-kilometer border. And there, at gunpoint, they would be told in the middle of the night to go across. And on the other side, there was Bangladeshi Rangers. So essentially, there was this illegal Bangladeshi migrant population trapped between BSF on one side and Bangladesh Rangers on the other side. And they didn't know where to go. If they went that side, they would be shot by the Rangers. If they came back, they would be shot by the BSF. Eventually, many of them found their way back. And they found their way back because they had gone. Most of them, we found 90%, were from either Kuch Bihar or Assam or districts of Bengal. But because they could not, so to speak, produce the papers, they were all supposed to be Bangladeshi. So the roots of violence go very deep. And it is in this depth that we probably need to examine what can be done. I think both Colin and you have talked about the courts, and you talked about the NHRC, and Dr. Dayal has also talked about the fundamental propensity for violence in our nation. Although to some extent I would disagree. At the time of the rape case, there was certainly a large number of young people wearing banners saying death penalty, but there were more people who were not talking about the death penalty, particularly in women's organizations. These were not covered by the media. The media would immediately latch onto the banner or to the placard that said death penalty. But the others were not covered. But they represent the saner voice of the Indian polity, which is not covered in the media. To therefore assume that the Indian population is implicitly violent, I think would be a mistake. Now, what we tried to do in Delhi was we had this report which came out, we did this investigation, but essentially we took it back to the people who were the victims. And most of these people were activists. The waste picker organizations in Delhi that got together, they issued identity cards to their members. And eventually what we found was that every time somebody was arrested and taken to the police thana, 200 people from the slum would land up at the thana and demand that the person be released, or that the Delhi police produce proof that these people were illegal immigrants, which the Delhi police could not produce. And so they eventually were released. So to my mind, the organization of the victims is the primary concern. Until this organization takes place, the victims will not be able to defend themselves, and to expect that Kiriti or Colin will be able to defend them is not going to work very far. Some cases will be defended, a large number of cases will not. So we have to figure out a way of organizing and mobilizing. That's one issue that I think I want to put before you. And the second thing I would like to put before you is that there were two laws in this country. One was the Foreigners Act, and the other was the illegal migrants determination tribunal act.